Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Paleozoic Yugioh deck profile for post-Lightning Overdrive. With the release of the Lightning Overdrive set, we were given a new Paleozoic Link monster, definitely a powerhouse for the deck that just helps to set up more of our Paleozoic plays with the initial play of Paleozoics, just being able to activate these different Paleozoic traps we have in the deck, and then when one is activated and a Paleozoic monster, or you call it a monster, but it's actually a trap, is in the graveyard, you can special summon it onto the field. So just more and more resources to go into our Link monster and a bunch of different Paleozoic rank 2 monsters as well. I'm happy with the results of the deck. It's definitely a trap heavy deck and more of a control style type of deck. So if you're a fan of those type of decks, it's definitely one to consider to look into. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. Now, normally we would start off with the monsters, but with traps being a big part of the deck, we're going to start with the traps and then the monsters and then go to the spells. So starting off with the traps, we're running 3 Paleozoic Canadia. With this card, you target one face-up monster your opponent controls and change it to face-down defense position. And all of the Paleozoic traps share the card effect once per chain. When a trap card is activated while this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon it as a normal monster onto the field. Aqua, level 2, 1200 attack and 0 defense, which they all share. And this card is not treated as a trap card. So a big part to remember with that card, so it doesn't take up a spell and trap card zone. So you can special summon all the different Paleozoic cards you want and still have plenty of back row to use as well. So 3 of this card, you want to run a good majority of the different Paleozoic cards so you can see them that much more often. And with the Link monster, you're given the option to set up more and more, which we'll get to when we go over the extra deck with this card alone. For our next Paleozoic card, definitely would say probably one of the best ones in the deck, and that is Paleozoic Deinonymiscus. You target one face-up card on the field, discard 1 card, and if you do, banish it once per chain, having the same special summon option when you activate a trap card, or when a trap card is activated, being able to special summon it onto the field to use. So Deinonymiscus just banishes a card on the field, a big plus for sure. And with the discard, you can discard another Paleozoic trap and then have it set up in the graveyard to special summon back onto the field, which then 2 of these can overlay into one of your Paleozoic Xyz monsters, which we'll go over when we get to the extra deck also. I also run 3 Paleozoic Marissa. You send 1 trap card from your deck to the graveyard, and once per chain, when a trap card is activated while this card's in the graveyard, having the special summon option. So not only can you send a Paleozoic, but you also have the option to send one of the better traps in the deck, which is Lost Wind to the graveyard, which has a graveyard setup and also just a special summon negation if a monster is special summoned, which we'll go over when we get to Lost Wind. So they all work very, very well together. The Marissa just has more setup for additional traps in the deck, and still sharing the special summon like all the other ones. I also run 3 Paleozoic Yugioh. With this one, you target 1 spell or trap card on the field and destroy it, and then once per chain having the special summon option. So with it, targeting a spell or trap on the field and destroying it can take care of a good number of different cards your opponent may have set up on the field. So you can rely on Yugioh to basically destroy those cards as an easy set, and multiple back row can keep your opponent guessing. Will it either be the Yugioh to destroy a card, the Marissa to set up the graveyard, the Deinonymiscus to banish, or the Canadia to set a card on the field like a Book of Moon effect. With the last of the Paleozoic traps being 2 Paleozoic Hallucigenia. This one, you target a face-up monster on the field and half its attack and defense, and then also having the once per chain special summon. So this is more of a situational one. That's why I'm only running 2 of it, where you have to have that monster attacking to fully benefit when it attacks into one of your monsters, and you can reach some pretty good numbers with some of the power pluses, including Miss Starboy and all of our different rank 2 monsters. So we really only use this card if we have a weaker monster. Let's say we have one of our lone Paleozoic monsters on the field, 1200 attack, and our opponent attacks into it. We can activate Hallucigenia to then half that attack and hopefully either crash into our Paleozoic monster or at least hit over it with the attack that it now becomes. And for more additional support for the Paleozoic cards, I also run 3 Trap Trick. You banish 1 normal trap card from your deck except for Trap Trick and set 1 card with the same name directly from your deck, and it can only be activated this turn. So with this card, it can be activated as an option for either banishing one of the many Paleozoics to search another one. So that search option gives you more and more setup. So you want to run good numbers of all the different ones. You have the option to use this card with all the cards we spoke of before, since we run more than 1 copy. So Trap Trick is definitely staple for that alone. I also run 3 Lost Win with this card. You target one face-up special summon monster on the field and negate its effects. Also, its original attack is halved. And if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck while this card's in the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can set this card but banish it when it leaves the field. So, setting this card up in the graveyard with Marissa will not only set Marissa in your graveyard, but also the Lost Win will be sent to the graveyard to then be reset onto the field. Setting up the Marissa, so then when you activate the Lost Win, you can special summon Marissa back onto the field. They both work very, very well together, and just another 3 of, because it can also be a trap trick target. One of the cards that's not a trap trick target, but still definitely like running in the deck is Solemn Strike. When a monster would be special summoned or a monster effect is activated, just having the 1500 to negate and destroy that card. So it's good to have all this back row set up. Like I said, the Paleozoics don't take up trap spots since they're not counted as traps, so you can just run more and more back row, relying on Lost Win, Solemn Strike, you name it. The biggest weakness I would say is just the back row destruction that your opponent may try, so you might want to try some Solemn Judgments as well. Maybe you can mix and match the number, or take out one of the other traps we spoke of, like the Paleozoic Hallucigenia, if you're not a fan of the attack halving option. For some other traps in the deck, I also run 2 Goes in Match. Each player can only control 1 attributive monster. The majority of our extra deck is water monsters, so we're really not limited to all we can special summon since all of our main deck is water monsters, but we can definitely shut down a good number of different decks our opponent may be using, so I like to run 2 of this card as an added option just to disrupt those plays. I also run 2 Heavy Storm Duster. This could be another spot to take out for Solemn Judgment if you wish, but Heavy Storm Duster is a trap trick target, so being able to banish one to activate another one with trap trick is why I like running this card in the deck. But potentially you can also increase the number of Goes in Match by taking out a number of Heavy Storm Duster along with adding in Solemn Judgment into the deck. And then lastly, for the traps, I run 1 Imperial Order, just due to the fact that we don't run that many spells in the deck. And even if we, had the 1 spell and we activate this, it could definitely, hurt our opponent more than it would, to benefit them, because of the fact that a good amount of decks run spells. And this is one deck that doesn't solely rely on that spell option. And then just being able to shut them down, we can get our plays, going a lot more faster than our opponent could with this. But that is it for the traps. We'll now move on to the monsters. That definitely does sound weird. For the monster lineup, just to work well with the Paleozoics, I am running the Frog engine, so 3 Swap Frog, just an easy special summon from the hand, and not only that, I can set up more and more different aqua monsters in our graveyard, which for this lineup would be the Frog monsters. So 3 Swap Frog, and additionally 3 Ronin Totem. You can not be used as a synchro summon, but you could use it mostly for Xyz summons and Link summons, and if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish 1 Frog to special summon it. So with this card, you have that option to banish the Swap Frog, or even our Dupe Frog, which is the last of the monsters we run, being another card for the banish, and then just protection of other cards, like if we make Totally Awesome, or even just one of our other frogs on the field. Plus, having 2000 defense makes for more of a defensive card altogether. And that is it for the monsters. For the spells, the only spell we are running in the deck is Pot of Desires. You run multiples of plenty of cards. So whatever you banish with Pot of Desires, as long as it doesn't disrupt your track trick play too much, you can still rely on it for setup of a bunch of different other cards. So more and more draw power. You're going to invest a lot in the back row. You want to make sure you can keep that draw power going. That's why I prefer this card. You can try Pot of Extravagance. I do run a good number of different cards in the extra deck that you can use the same logic for the banish and draw, but it's player preference, and Pot of Desires is a little more affordable because we weren't too expensive with this deck total. It's pretty affordable for all the different cards you see in it. So Pot of Desires fits that bill for just the affordableness of the deck altogether. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. Our main go-to monster is Paleozoic Yugioh, I believe is how you pronounce this card. With this card, you need 2 Paleozoic monsters. So the biggest weakness, obviously, is that you can't use the frogs to make it, but we do run a good majority of Paleozoic, so you use them for it. It's unaffected by other monster effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Paleozoic Yugioh once per turn. You can target 1 set card on the field, and the effects of basically with this card, and send it to the graveyard. If you do, set 1 Paleozoic trap directly from your deck. It can only be activated this turn. I keep saying only, but it can be activated this turn. And also, if a set card you control will be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard instead. So going back to the protection of the back row, this is a big part of the protection. So if our opponent were to destroy something on the field, let's say like with Harpy's Feather Duster, you can use Yugioh Duel Links in the graveyard to protect those cards. So it's one reason why I really do like this card in the deck. And even if you were to use the Toads, you can always overlay into some other options first and then go into this card with some of the other Paleozoic Xyz monsters we run. For some more of the generic Link monsters, I also run 2 Miss Starboy, just the power boost for all of our water tribute monsters. Comes in handy with this card for sure, and being able to recycle other water monsters means we can add other frog monsters when it's sent to the graveyard back to our hand. I also run 1 Area the Water Charmer Gentle and 1 Marine Cess Coral Anemone for the additional water plays, whether it be the special summon option with Coral Anemone, or even taking one of our opponent's resources if they are running any water monsters with a Water Charmer Gentle. For more of the generic Link monsters, I don't go into them often, but I still like to rely on Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Unicorn for the summons that I can use for both of these cards in the deck. For the Xyz monsters, I run 2 Paleozoic Anomalocaris, with this card needing 3 or more level 2 monsters. It's unaffected by other monster effects, and once per turn, if a trap card is sent from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can excavate the top card of your deck, and if it's a trap card, add it to your hand. Otherwise, send it to the graveyard. And once per turn during either player's turn, if this card has a trap card as Xyz material, you can detach 1 material from this card, target 1 card on the field, and destroy it. Now, this is a true boss monster at that. Needing 3 or more level 2 monsters, you can use the frogs to make this card, having a Paleozoic monster, and then after you use it for that setup, can potentially be used to link summon then into Paleozoic Cambro Raster if you want that option available to you. But needing the 3 is definitely worth the investment, because then you can just add traps from the top of your deck, which the majority of the cards in our deck are traps, so a good chance that you will hit one of those with this card. I also run 2 Paleozoic Opabina with this card, needing 2 level 2 monsters, so another easier one to make with our frog monsters along with our Paleozoic monsters. Is unaffected by other monster effects, just like the Paleozoic traps, and you can activate Paleozoic traps from your hand, another big benefit with this card, and you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to add 1 Paleozoic trap from your deck to your hand. So search power, and then immediately after you add those cards to your hand, you can activate them. So with this, you have the offensive play by Anomalocaris, and then the defensive play thanks to Opabina, which can be just, like I said, activating those trap cards from your hand and have less risk of your opponent destroying them. And then for the rest of the extra deck, I'm just running 2 totally awesome, just more of the protection setup. This card has a negation effect, so being able to rely on it in all of our different frog lineup, you definitely want to run it in a good number of different Paleozoic frog trap decks. So just the 2 of it, though. If you wanted to swap out some of the other numbers, you can try maybe more of the additional Link monsters, maybe Boral Sword as a Link 4 option to go into, or even increase some of the numbers for your Paleozoic Xyz monsters if you want to go more of the Paleozoic route in the deck. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, relying on your back row is a big play. So just with what you have set on the field can make up the play you want to go for. If you activate Dinomischus and you set up another Paleozoic in the discard for your graveyard, you banish one of your opponent's cards, which could take away that resource. And then setting up the Dinomischus in your graveyard along with 2 other additional monsters, you activate Canadia, which will summon 1 onto the field. Having another trap option on the field to activate can give you your second monster, giving you 2 Paleozoics alone, which then you can use to either overlay, because don't forget also, it'll banish it when it leaves the field. So if you want to go into that Xyz play first, you can rely on Opabina for then adding another Paleozoic from your deck to your hand, and then either activating it, setting up more of the graveyard plays, which then you can use for it, or if you want to go around the whole play and just go for more of the Link Summon option using these 2 cards because you want more of the trap search, being able to then also set up more of our plays by setting up other cards in the graveyard can get us more Paleozoic cards added to our hand for us to use with some of the other setup we already have in the deck also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. I'm making more and more decks from Lightning Overdrive. Definitely having a lot of fun because I've been a big fan of all the different cards we have to work with from this set. And I hope you all are enjoying the videos as well. Until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.